Ooh. Hey everybody, welcome to the Serve Brew. It's Tori Townley. I'm stoked to hang out with you guys this afternoon. We have, oh my goodness, one of my favorite churches to follow. You guys have been probably hearing or watching all the reposts that we're doing from them because they've got the most beautiful stories going on, the best ideas. It's Pastor Andy Williamson with Factory Church in Charlotte, North Carolina. What's up, Pastor Andy?
How are you? Thank you for allowing me to be on this. You have way more credible people to put on this than me, so I really appreciate it.
As if. No, you guys, no, I can't even, I'm not gonna annoy people with just doting because please just follow them on social media. You'll understand if you're not already. So we love y'all so much. You guys helped us with our social media takeover last
Yeah.
year. Casey was so rad. You guys do so many cool things like beds for kids.
Mm-hmm.
I won't get into one of my favorite stories yet. We'll save that for later.
Mm-hmm.
You guys keep listening till the end. But before we get into all the fun, I always ask, this is a coffee break, serve brew,
Yep.
not
Yep.
beer. It is
That's
coffee
right.
or
This
tea.
is a Christian podcast.
Yeah,
We gotta,
South.
yeah.
We're really from the South over here, so gotta
That's right.
keep it PG.
That's right.
What is your coffee of choice? Your Starbucks order?
So I would usually go hot tea first because I can get caffeine, but it just isn't as big of a jolt as coffee, and I don't need crazy jolts. I just need a little bit of pick me up. So my go-to, as everyone in the office knows, would be an English breakfast hot tea. Now we can spice it up, doing a little London fog. That sounds a little weird, but yeah, that's what it is.
Wow, you are so mature to be able to say I'm going to do tea and not coffee. You are
That's
like
right.
the only pastor I know
That's right.
who would choose that. Okay, really cool points there. Oh, do we put sugar in it, cream, or just
No,
straight?
nope. So I'm gonna go straight because I want to still punish myself to feel like I'm drinking something more adult-like. So I don't want it to taste very good because then it makes me feel like I am suffering for the cause of caffeine. So I just take it straight and I power through it. And every now and then, if I want to spice it up, we'll put a little bit of honey in it, but don't do it too often because you'll get used to it and then you'll want comfort the rest of your life.
You're indulging. Wow,
Mm-hmm.
this is a science. This is a holy discipline. Okay, good to know. That's hilarious. I love it. All right, now that we know your coffee of choice, can you tell us like just a little bit about you? This is my first time meeting you face to face. We've emailed. That's
Yeah.
it. So tell us like who you are, a little bit of your story, fun facts. What's the setup?
Yes. So my background is in, so my dad was an old pastor for over 50 years. I always thought that I was going to take over my dad's church, but my dad would never give me a job. So that's a different podcast for a different day. But he wouldn't give me a job. What he wanted me to do is learn how to serve. And he felt that in order to serve people, you have to understand what people go through, just understanding what it means to pay a cell phone bill, what it means to work full time, all of that stuff. So he wanted me to be part of the church, which I was. I worked in the church weekly, but he wanted me to have a regular job. As that happened as I was younger, I, through default and different things, took on a career path into the media world. And I worked for magazines, both lifestyle and automotive magazines for years. And I started out in just the mailroom. And then I went from the mailroom to learning how to shoot photography and then learning how to write stories and then worked my way up to being the editor in chief of a magazine and then being a publisher of magazines, later having my own magazines. And that was near 20 years ago. When that ended up happening, my media career took off and it translated me into moving into a marketing background. So I own an advertising marketing agency that I have a full staff at here in Charlotte that I should say team. I never call them staff. They're part of my team. And so I work still full time. I'm also the lead pastor at Factory, but I work full time. And that's by design. God gave me this business. And I've had Theory, Communication, and Design is my agency. I've had that for 7 years. And so I still work full time. We planted the church 3 years ago. And if anybody is listening to this, it's probably the worst idea to plant a church, but hey, we're going with it. It's crazy. And I still am maintain those hours where I work full time and also serve at the church. So I am still a volunteer at church. I don't take a paycheck because I'm able to make money somewhere else, and I'm able to take the money that they would possibly pay me to be able to do outreach projects. Go figure that.
Wow, that is super cool. I love how like I'm sure that your experience is just like your dad planned of like learning to be in the world and with people and navigating that has fueled why Factory Church is so beautiful and why
Mhm.
it's so much about the people. And that is so cool. So, okay, now that we know a little bit of your setup, what about tell us about Factory Church? Like what led
Yeah.
you to feel like it was time to start this? What did you build it around? Obviously, compassion and serving people and humanity is so big, but like,
Mhm.
bring us to Factory Church, paint the
Yeah.
picture.
Well, I was at another church a few years ago, and we were at a church that still had the church bulletins, which is amazing. And they there was this ad in there, just a request for somebody to serve and like the youth or something like that. My wife was serving somewhere else, and she said, "Hey, it's time," because I was born and raised in Miami, Fort Lauderdale. So we moved up here about 6 years ago, 7 years ago, and and so we were getting acclimated, the whole nine yards. And I was in a church, and she's like, "It's time for you to go serve." I said, "I serve behind the scenes. Don't worry about me. I'm." So she kind of guilt tripped me. I sent an email to the then youth pastor saying, "Hey, I keep seeing this ad in the bulletin. It's been there for 3 months. Obviously, no one's taken it. If you need me to help the high school boys, I don't mind helping and teaching a class or a small group or something." So he replied back and he said, like, "Well, what's your qualifications? Like, are you even qualified for this?" And I was like, "Hey, absolutely not. Can you just send that to me in a clean email so I can forward that to my wife just to prove that you don't need my help?" Right. So he starts laughing and stuff, and he's like, "Well, we'll see." He goes, "I have some other people that are looking at helping us." I said, "No problem." Well, of course, 2 weeks later, no one wants to help him. And by default, I start to teach this like Sunday school class, or this small group for high school boys. And high school boys are horrible. They're awkward, they're weird. And so we started with like 7 boys. Me and my close friend Trey did, and started with like 7 boys. And I fell in love with these kids. And that's the difference of this. If you do this because you love people, you'll never get burnt out. But if you do this for a platform, you're going to have to try to figure out how to continue to manufacture that week after week. And that's exhausting. So I started loving these boys, and we grew that thing from 7 boys to 64, 65 boys on a Sunday morning, and just started going nuts. That prompted the then pastor at the time was an older pastor, and he saw something in me, and he just started to push me to think about I should be doing this. I told him, "Man, that's a young man's deal. I'm definitely not doing this. I'll just, teach this crazy, high school boys class." And he was pushing me to start a church and to plant a church. And he said he felt very strongly that he should be part of my life to help me plant this church. And by help means kick me out and make me go start a church. So that's how we started. And it was very strange because I fought it for many, many months until God just got a hold of my heart. And I thought when I moved up here to South Florida, or from South Florida to Charlotte, that being a part of a church at that level had passed me. And I was okay with it. I learned how to be a giver. I learned how to be a somebody to serve, and I was okay. I got at peace with it. But I really do think that that's when God will flat wear you out, is when you get at peace with where He has you. And that doesn't necessarily mean that what you're dreaming of will align with His timing. But if you will just be quiet and work it, he'll use you when you're actually willing to be used.
Dude, I have so many chills. Like, I thought about the scripture. It says, "Until the time came to fulfill his dream, the Lord tested Joseph's character." And it's like that your dream was there all along. Your anointing, your calling
Mm,
was there all along. And you just had experiences all along the way that made you and now your family, your church family, like
yeah.
the beautiful thing that it is. And it wouldn't have been that if it started so far back. That's so cool to me. I love that it's built on humanity and it's built on
Mm,
just like you said, loving people, and that's what you guys exude. That's what caught
mm,
my attention.
mm,
It's genuine. It's not manufactured, like you said. It is
mm,
genuinely from your heart, and that's big.
yeah.
That is very big. Um, okay, so I know I'm
Can
jumping
I say
around.
something of what? Can
Yes,
I say
please.
something what you just said?
Yeah.
The genuineness that you talk about is, I grew up in churches, and other people that are listening to this have been in churches before, where sometimes churches can be a challenge. There's a challenge. There could be changes, leadership changes, et cetera, et cetera. And those things can be debilitating. They could be challenges. They could be hard. And when people are trying to find their purpose and the church isn't able to help them walk that journey to find their purpose because the only thing open is the kids' room. I don't want to work in the kids' room or the parking lot. It's too hot out there. So there's nowhere else for me to get involved with. And we as leaders have to understand that, God will use me right now in my advertising agency. He will use me working for the post office. He will use me working for the social worker's office. And we used to merge the idea that I can only be used by God inside a church organization on a full-time level. But we have to have a paradigm shift. There are powerful, powerful leaders that are not working inside the church, but are making massive moves for the kingdom. But it took me to unpack all the church that was built inside me and to get back to the core thing. And the core thing is people. It'll always be people. That's the core mission of God. And even though I experienced hurt, letdown, frustrations, none of that was wasted. I had to feel all of that in order to be able to meet somebody where they're at, not where I'm demanding them to be. And so we just changed it. We said, we don't want to be an address in the community. We want to be part of the community. So I don't want people to know where we meet at. I want them to know about all the crazy things we're doing inside the community. But that means I have to lower my expectations of humans, because I have an expectation they should be looking like this, do this, get a job, whatever the case is. And all of that's irrelevant to reaching them for Jesus. What it is it makes me feel more comfortable. So I had to choose, do I want comfort or do I want to reach people for Jesus? They're two different things, because God didn't call me to a life of comfort. He called me to a life of adventure. He wants us to be adventurous and live life and have abundance. And I think outreach, you're tapping the heart of God when you're actually loving others right where they're at.
I love this perspective so much. When we look at it as an adventure, it changes so much of everything. I think it's great that we work so hard to help other churches and help other dream centers figure out, like, what's the strategy? What are some practical steps? How can we help people find their purpose and make a difference? Fantastic. But if we don't allow the adventure and the sensitivity to the Holy Spirit to be part of that, then it's just a piece of paper. It's just a structure. There's no life involved. So I love that you have done so much work to allow the Holy Spirit to permeate the whole thing. And I feel like you guys are great at tapping into creativity. That's been on my heart lately. It's like when I come to my little church in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, we're about 4 years old, and I am learning. Yeah, I've done the growth track. I'm serving on a team. That's fantastic. But there is so much more that I can bring to the table. And it's up to me to figure that, like, to say, hey, here's what I can do. I have a creative idea. And my church, they're amazing because they give us that permission, both spiritually and practically. But like, I just want to, like, I see that in you as well, as like, I know that there's more than just what's in my head for you. Like, God has a future for you. And my job is to unlock your passions, to unlock your spiritual gifts, and to help you thrive in that, because it's going to go beyond what I thought of. It's going to go beyond all that. So I love that I just see that you've given that beautiful permission to your people to learn how to love, and you're there cheering them on. At least that's what I see from the outside.
And think of that, what you're saying to me, you just taught that beautifully. I couldn't add anything more to what you just taught right there. And I think the neat thing is I had to have a shift in my perspective on what God allowed or wanted, and where we could be creative or not be creative. How far can we push the envelope of being creative to reaching people? And we limit so much. Like, I think the other day on Sunday, Richard Branson made it into the moon, or not to the moon, made it into outer space, right? And so now there's billionaires racing to get to outer space. It's amazing. What a world we live in. And he looked down and he said that he looked down on Earth and he said he was breathtaken by what Earth looked like floating from that perspective. And so yet we go to our churches and we open the doors and we demand people to come in. They're not going to come in. It's over. They're not coming in. You have to go and reach people in the most creative way possible. And in creativity, we have the Holy Spirit, the greatest creator ever. God in spirit, Jesus, the Son of God, breathing this world into existence. Yet we pray and ask for the most little things. And so to reach people, yeah, we got to get creative. And sometimes, Tori, sometimes I think our churches and church leaders need to get outside of the church meetings and just talk to normal humans that don't go to church on what the needs are. They'll tell you the needs are there.
Yeah, that's deep. That's really deep stuff for sure. I want to know, so on that whole vein of like getting outside of the church and understanding what's really out there, you guys are in Charlotte, North Carolina. How do you crack the code? A lot of people are familiar with Charlotte, but like, what are some of the common needs that you guys have uncovered? What are you seeing? The demographics, the strengths, the culture. What makes it so unique? And then how does your church respond to that? How does your church reflect that?
So there's a small church not far from us. Not many people have heard of it, but it's catching on, and it's called Elevation. Not many people know Pastor Stephen Furtick for sure, right? Okay, so we have the most famous church globally in our backyard. So when we started in Charlotte, I thought the worst idea ever is to start a church. Who would ever want to come to our church? You got this like crazy big, beautiful church down the street with all of these campuses. Now, the perspective has to switch because I think who we're speaking to right now are people that are in maybe just moderate sized churches, whatever the case is, and that is beautiful, right? What I found is this, is that there's needs everywhere, but the church rarely has done a good job in the last century of going and meeting the needs. They have forced and asked people to come and meet them where they're at on a Sunday morning, look like this, do this. And you got to think, like a Christian church is a very strange atmosphere to come into if you are not from the church world. We have our own language, we sing a certain way, we do stand up, sit down, do things, and it's very, very strange. It's usually not very easy for somebody off the street to come in and find acceptance because there's a ritual, right? So if you really are going to fulfill the mission of Jesus, which is, go to the ends of the earth and reach people, then you have to do it outside of Sunday. So we changed the perspective of Sunday, and we made Sunday all about celebration and encouraging and uplifting our saints and equipping them to reach the hurting. That could be both lost people, and it could be saints that have been hurt, people that are far from faith, whatever the case, people. And I believe that the challenge that our people are going to even continue to face coming out of COVID, coming out of stay-at-home orders, wherever they're at in the nation, is their churches are going to look different, but the needs are not. The needs are still there. They just have to put more effort and time in going outside of the church walls and just be normal and start looking at what the needs are, because there's hurting people everywhere. And it's a snowball. You're not going to have the best idea today, but you get a little win today. You get a little win tomorrow. You get a little win. I thought Casey, and her title at Factory is Director of Fun and Brilliance is her official title. She was helping lead a serve on Saturday, and she told our people, she said, hey, we were serving our homeless neighbors. We call them our homeless neighbors because they are neighbors. They just are homeless. And she was leading a charge with one of our fun friends named Daniel. We'll talk about him in a second, but she started started the whole meeting off with, and she's a brilliant leader. She said, listen, this is not going to be perfect. Yes, we all want to do things excellent, but we're in a broken area dealing with broken people, and we are broken. So let's not get it twisted. We are broken. We're not going to hand things out perfectly. We're not going to do everything just right, but please look people in the eyes, tell them you love them, and ask them how you can serve them. If you just do those three things, some other stuff, the tablecloths might not be perfect. Something may not. We have an ice cream truck. The factory has our own ice cream truck, and the brakes went out on it the night before. We were supposed to go down to serve at our homeless neighbor outreach. We'll bring it back down there this week. But you just pivot, you just make a change. But the heart has to be there, which is, I get to do this. And so in our area in Charlotte, I thought, what need would there be? And I think I'm going to speak to a lot of churches and people right now. Just because you might be in the same area with a big church or somebody that's doing really great things, they can't meet the whole need. We have 900 churches, over 900 churches, evangelical churches in the greater Charlotte area. But we have 1.8 million or so people. That would mean we would have to have 1,700 people per church to reach all of those people. It's impossible. So there's a need, if we can stop worrying about what the other church is doing down the street, and if we're good enough, if we've done enough like they have or not, and we just start to work. Now, if I can encourage some people out there right now listening, if they don't have a good outreach program and they don't know how to do it, go find a church locally that's doing a good job and just start partnering with them. I know it sounds taboo because none of these churches talk to each other. None of these pastors talk to each other. I have no idea why. But if they can just partner up with somebody locally, we started that with Elevation. I just started calling up Elevation. I'm like, man, you guys do all of these outreach things. And they're funny because most of the churches in Charlotte won't talk to them because, yeah, they drain the swamp. I mean, they're the biggest, baddest thing in the area. And I'm like, I love it. I want to learn from you guys. And now, not only do we have huge serve days, but we're a big part of their serve days as well. So maybe partner with another church or organization down the street. And also, don't reinvent the wheel. There's some great ministries and organizations in your cities that they just don't have resources. So figure out how to be the resource. Maybe go in and meet some of these different organizations and see what you can bring to the table, which could just be bandwidth. It could be just bodies that are serving and delivering things. And it gets very contagious. It affects the rest of your community. So these outreach leaders that are watching this right now, they've got a massive job. They're actually creating culture and they don't even know it, but they're creating culture in their churches in a big way. I'll pause now so you can.
No, that was great. It's so true. So true. It is all about culture and celebrating.
Mm,
Like you said before, it may not be this giant thing that happens, but it's those
mm,
small little sparks and those small little yeses that we celebrate and that reinforces culture. It
yeah.
inspires people. Partnering is huge. I love that you said that. We love Elevation, Pastor Josh, like they are
Mm,
incredible and they have such a heart for partnership, and that's, I love that.
huge.
You'd be surprised, like it seems intimidating, but you guys
Mhm,
listening, like people, if you love Jesus for
mhm,
real, we're supposed to work together, and serve day
mhm,
showed that. Like look at how
mhm,
beautiful that partnership was. Like there, it's all
mhm,
about working together, so don't be scared. That's a beautiful beautiful advice, Pastor Andy. So
mhm,
okay, let's jump and shift gears a little bit. Tell me, like specifically, I know you guys, I feel like, are probably more less like here's the outreach program we do, or here's
mhm.
the outreach focus. I feel like it's just we show up and we do stuff. But if you
Go,
have
yeah,
to kind of give a snapshot of like some of the
yeah,
cool ideas you guys have done, I know y'all did winter kits, y'all do some
yeah,
really fun creative things. What are your favorites?
yeah. So I'll tell you even how we got to this place, and it might help inspire some of these listeners. Is when COVID hit and we had to go stay at home and do virtual services. Well, now we have to engage our people even more, right? Because like, how do we do that? And I think that COVID was one of the most beautiful things to happen to the church. It was for our church because we got so aggressive. And in fact, for me, the news said only essential workers are allowed to go outside and play and do and work. And I'm like, well, then I'll go be an essential worker. Then I'll go serve everybody I can. Like, so this is amazing. I thought the church would be like all over this. What we ended up doing was we started to make adjustments on a weekly basis, and we started to announce a certain mission or serve that we were going to do weekly. And we would even sponsor, like if you shared our service on your Facebook page, we would give $5 for every share, and $5 to whatever organization that we're going to partner with that week. And we would partner with them on financially and partner with them physically. And we would just start to find these incredible needs throughout the city because weekly we have church services and we got to figure out other things to tell our teams about. Like, hey, there's a need for foster care. There's a need for homeless outreach. There's a need for single moms or shut-ins, etc. So the more aggressive we got with partnering and weekly trying to find serves, it opened our heart up it opened the church's heart up. So what was neat is when we started to try a bunch of different things, we ended up finding things that actually tapped the heart of our church. Not everything would work, but then there are certain things where they would just come out for. So since we tried so many things, and that's what we do weekly, we still weekly are sponsoring and talking about serving every Sunday from the stage. Every Sunday we're talking about somewhere where we're going and doing. And so that becomes part of the DNA of who you are when you do that. So how did we find certain things? Let's talk about those summer kits and even winter kits for a second, because I think I can maybe shed some light to help some people how to get more people involved. The reason we started doing kits was when you start to talk about the need of how do we reach homeless people and solve, let's say, homelessness or foster care, whatever the case is. When you look at the overall need, it's too big to swallow. It's just hard. But if you can make it digestible to where more people can get involved with it, then you'll have a greater outcome, and you'll have more of an engagement for your people. So this is how we approached it. Instead of saying we needed X thousands of dollars to go and reach homeless people, we came up with a kit that we were going to give them. At the time for our winter kits, it was a really heavy blanket and hats and gloves and hand warmers, all the things that are needed during the winter. And we put it into, we said, this is what we're going to buy. In our kits, I think it was either $27 or $30 for a kit. So what we did is we said, sponsor a kit. See, everybody in our congregation could at least sponsor one kit. $30, they could go without lunch maybe once or twice, and they can sponsor a kit and feel really good about it. So they would sponsor the kits, we would get all of the stuff, and other people that maybe financially couldn't sponsor a kit came and filled the kits. And then we got our kids department involved. They're writing notes to put in the kits. And so we started to figure out, how do we make things more digestible? Because if we say, hey, we need $100,000 to build this over here, people that can only give a few dollars, they check out. They're like, I can never be part of this. But we're talking $25, $20, $10, and then you make them part of the process. The more you can make people part of the process of serving and giving, the greater return you're going to have. So we saw through our winter kit outreach for our homeless neighbors, we saw great success with us getting 250 or so sponsored kits in, I think, a day, maybe even that first Sunday when we announced it. By the time we were done Sunday night, or by the next day or two, all of the kits were sponsored. And then it opened up, look what you did. So you got to brag. If you don't tell anybody that you're doing something internally, then they don't know the impact is there. So then you brag and you tell people, your people internally, look what you guys did. Brag on them, encourage them. And then what it ends up being is like, now we need your help to fill these kits, to help us fill the kits, and then we're going to need your help to deploy and give them away. So I think the key here is getting more people involved at different levels. Some people cannot go down there and serve, but they work full time, but they can sponsor 10 kits. Awesome. Some people can fill the kits left and right. Great. Some people can drive them down there and manage a team that's going to be ministering. All of this is important. I think if you break up the different segments, you get more people involved, and you just teach them. We don't need you to do all the things. Do the one thing that God's leading you and putting on your heart. So yeah, I love the whole summer kit, winter kits. We just did summer kits this past weekend for Serve Day to our homeless neighbors. We've done a lot of things with foster care. I think that's a great thing for churches. We had a foster care system here in town teach us that their goal was and they're called One More, One Less. Their goal was to flood the foster care system with Christian parents. And if they could flood the foster care system with Christian parents, they could have the chance to end foster care in our area. If you think about that, like, hold on, we could, there's many families that would want to help. They just don't know how to get registered. They don't know how to go through the system. But if the church can work with the social workers and bring great families that have already been filtered, etc., we can work with the social worker system and help foster care. And then we can get backpacks and strollers and kits and whatever the case is when foster parents get a foster kid, that we're able to able to support and help there. So yeah, I think foster care is a really good one. It can touch hearts. Homeless for us has been a good one. We do a lot of fun things around the holidays too, like Christmas tree starter kits. I don't know if you ever saw any of that crazy stuff.
That was so cool. Tell us about that. That was so cute.
So we started to work with the Boys and Girls Club locally, and also an organization called Beds for Kids. And their whole heart is social workers in schools were finding kids that were coming to school and they were just, man, they were falling asleep. They just didn't have energy. They were finding that these families were barely out of homelessness. They were in some form of a shelter, but they were sleeping on the ground. So they had no furniture, lamps. They're eating on the ground, and this is all over the nation. This is going on. So Beds for Kids here locally in Charlotte started to open our eyes that they were going into the houses and they were putting beds in there. It started initially for kids. Well, the problem is if you have a family of 5 and you bring one bed in for this one kid because you heard about them from the social worker, what are the other 4 going to do? So you almost got to go in and outfit a house, and they have a whole program for it. So as we started to serve with them, I started to say, well, if these families are barely able to get a bed and stuff, right? And the holidays are coming. Holidays might be good for me and your family, probably ain't very good for theirs. And nothing's worse than like going through the holidays and going to school and seeing your friends have things, etc. So I started to work with them and I said, well, how do we make their holiday just start to become full of cheer? And we started to ask the question, do you think these families have Christmas trees? And something as simple as a Christmas tree, we may think like, oh, it's no big deal. But let me tell you, to a kid, it's a really big deal. It's a really big deal. And we started to find that most of these families did not have a Christmas tree, or probably would not be able to spend the money to get a Christmas tree or even the decorations, etc. So I said, okay, here's what we got to do. Let's partner with a local business that we can buy all the Christmas trees. We've done real Christmas trees because we wanted the kids to smell that smell, right? But you can do this with fake trees, etc. And then we started to figure out, all right, how do we, what are the types of things that we need to decorate the trees? And we made a Christmas tree starter kit packing slip. This many ornaments, this many lights, surge protector, extension cords, everything soup to nuts. And we gave those out to all our people that wanted to sponsor a Christmas tree kit. And so what we did is we had Christmas tree starter kits, and we had families that would sponsor them and buy all the stuff, put it in the box that we gave them, bring the box that was that filled up with the stuff. And then what we did is we went and bought the Christmas trees. And then we had all of our families pre-COVID, we changed it this past year, but pre-COVID, we would deliver the Christmas tree to the house. And we would go into the house if they would allow us. We would set it up. We'd get the family around and we would decorate the Christmas tree with them. And then we would let them know, hey, this weekend we're having this amazing, kickoff to our holiday season. Man, it'd be great if you would just sit with my family. We have seats. We'll save you seats. You want to come and hang out? And we'll even come pick you up if you need. See, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And so doing neat, creative things like that allows you to have conversations. You have to get a conversation started or you can't reach people for Jesus. See, because if you just want to tell them what they need to do to get out of the problem that they're in, they can't. They're in the problem that they're in. But if you'll find a reason to have a meaningful conversation, and for us, it started with the first thing that we ever purchased, besides just equipment and stuff around here, was an old beat up truck to turn into an ice cream truck. And the whole reason I built an ice cream truck was, well, ice cream. I mean, who doesn't like ice cream? And I figured, well, why don't we go around the community and just hand out free ice cream? And if you're not going to talk to me for handing you out free ice cream, well, let's get the good stuff, Snicker bars and all kind of stuff, then we can have a meaningful conversation. And that's exactly how you reach people, is meaningful conversations. You find the need and you figure out how to become the catalyst to the need. And I have yet found, Tori, that any need that we have brought to our church, even when it seems very big, there's people in that room that can help facilitate it, or they know somebody. We've had people sponsor kits, Christmas trees, etc., that don't even come to our church. They saw it on social media. They bought 10 Christmas trees or 10 starter kits, and they're just like, we love it. We're finding that people will meet needs way more than what's even inside your church if you'll just find the need and make it visible. Does that make sense?
Absolutely brilliant. absolutely brilliant. I'm just like kind of piecing it all together as you're talking. And I think it's so cool how like you basically it's like you're finding these pinpoints, these giant issues, causes, pockets of people, and you, like you said, you're breaking it down digestible to where people in your church, people can be connected to it, but they can also figure out where their spark is. Like you said, like, oh,
Mhm.
that's my passion point, my heart was opened up to it, but at the same time your entire church is behind the same cause. We're in this
Yes.
together, and there's so much beauty in that. Y'all are the church of kits. Like, how many,
Mhm.
you got
Yeah.
a kid everywhere, it's
Yeah.
so cool. I love it though, but it becomes so personal. It becomes so thoughtful. I'm a person where I'm like, I want to like actually touch this gift
Yeah.
that I'm going to that person's place, that I'm going to write the note for, and they're going to hold the note that I wrote. And like,
Right.
that is so cool to have that many touch points along the way in that process.
Yeah.
And we're all part of this story. And one of the best things that I've seen from you guys was birthed from this kit. And it's, you guys have
Yeah.
rallied and been part of changing someone's life, and that person, like, you've got to tell us the story. This is so just, I
Yeah.
think about it every day. Pastor Dino and I text about it, like, did you see the video of Daniel? I'm like, I know, I'm crying too. So it's so beautiful. Tell us that journey, that story, because it's just such a perfect, like,
Yeah.
this is why we do what we do. This is it.
Yeah. And this is what, and this changed our whole church. What I'm about to tell you. And it, man, it, it changed everything but for me. So, um, we had winter, man, it's cold, right? And we have our homeless neighbors. And during COVID, the city pushed all of our homeless neighbors into an area to control where they were for COVID reasons. Um, and so they created an area called Tent City, right outside the uptown area of Charlotte. What it did was it exposed the need. So I loved it. Now, when you're driving into the city, you can't get past this huge area of tents. And it unnerved the city because the city doesn't want to really be faced with seeing the need. They're fine if the people are hiding in the shadows. But now it was forced out in front of everybody. And either we can turn our head from it, or we can actually do something about it. So we decided, well, let's put together these winter kits like I spoke about earlier. And with that outreach of our winter kits, we were passing out winter kits to our homeless neighbors. And we came across this one man that was just wild. He was fun, wild, and there was something going on. He had some disabilities, and it didn't take long for us to find out that he had just suffered a stroke about a month ago. And if anyone knows what happens to people with when they suffer a stroke, it could be detrimental to their mobility, their speech, and things of that nature. And Daniel has been living on the street on and off, pretty much on for his whole life since a kid. And so this is a structure that they learn and they don't know how to come out of. And so we started to minister to Daniel, and he started to introduce us to all his friends. And he knew everybody in Tent City. And we asked him, we said, "Hey, you want to come to church tomorrow?" And he looked at us and he said, I don't know if we're allowed to say it, but he said, no, hell yeah, or so whatever. That's what he said. Do we have to bleep that out? I don't know. So, anyways, I'm sorry, Pastor Dino. So, anyways, we're like, sure, we're gonna pick you up and bring you, and so we started picking up him and his friends. Well, Tori, we kept bringing them to church, and he got involved and started to serve on Sundays. He's at the front door. He's doing things, and it got to a place where the city was dismantling Tent City, and they wanted the homeless neighbors to be put out. They wanted it to go away, if you will. So they put the homeless people into a hotel for 3 weeks, and that's how they sufficed the media and everybody that was up in arms about doing what they were doing. But at the end of 3 weeks, that was it. And so now these guys are back on the street, and some of them were able to get into shelters, some of them weren't. And at that point in time in our journey with Daniel, I just couldn't take him back down. I couldn't have my teams take him back down just to living on the street. So I just quietly we just invested and just started to put him in a hotel room to where we could figure it out. We figured we'd figure something out down the road. And as this was happening, his birthday was in March, and it happened to fall on a Sunday. So of course we're going to have a surprise birthday party. The whole service is going to be about a surprise birthday party for our crazy friend that has stolen our heart. And he told me about his favorite cake and this whole deal. So of course we went overboard and did this whole big thing for him in the service and celebrated his 54th birthday. And I had a mentor in the service that day that came to see us and helped me that Sunday. And he's a pastor. And after the service, he looked at me and he said, "Hey, I need to spend a few minutes with you." I said, "Okay, of course." And he said, "I want to give you some counsel, but I want you to promise me before I tell you that you're going to do what I say." That's kind of hard, right? And he said, "Listen, I want to talk to you about what you're doing with this man and with his friends." So I could feel it. I could feel it coming. The conversation of, "Hey, this is a big thing to do. You're never going to have enough budget. There's organizations that help these people. Just be careful." So he started that off and he's like, "Just be careful. I want you to be careful." And I got it. And he said, "Son, look at me." And he said, "I want you to be careful that you don't turn your back on him too soon." And that's all I had to hear. He said, "Son, there's something very strange going on." He said, "I don't know who this man is, but there is a spirit in this room that's very electric. And oftentimes we do little serves and outreach because it makes us feel good, but we don't follow through and finish it." And he said, I'm going to beg you to be very careful. He's not going to fit all of your standards, but be there for him. Don't turn your back on him." So after that happened, I said, "How are we going to do this?" And God gave me this vision to maybe if we could find a trailer or a camper or some kind of mobile home of some sort, like how could we do this? And I just felt that this was something God wanted us to do. And so that following Sunday or a couple Sundays after, I just made the announcement of like, "Hey, I gave Daniel special jobs on that Sunday. On the Sundays I talk about him. He'd have to be out in the parking lot doing something, and we would be talking about him inside the service." And so I just started to say, "Look, I think that that God's calling us to do something really special and to provide a home for this man, and to not just provide a home, but to provide a home. And I mean brand new things, everything inside, and new sheets and bed, the whole nine yards." And I left the stage. I did that a little bit in announcements, and God told me, "Get back on stage and say this." And I went back on stage and I said, "Hey, I don't know, but I think we can do this with a mobile home, some kind of trailer or something of that nature. And somebody in here may even have one. They might have one that you might be able to even help us get going with. I think we need to raise, X, I don't know, those 15,000, 20,000 or something like that we thought we needed." And so I get off stage later at the end of the service, and of course I have a line waiting for me. And we had a family that had an RV that they would use for hunting. And they're like, "We can't do a lot of things, but we can do this." And they wanted to give us the RV. And then we had people step up and say, "I work on these things. I'll redo the whole." So we redid the whole thing. And it took us 3 weeks, and we started to promote a housewarming service. And Daniel was on the serve team to rebuild this trailer because he wanted to make a difference in somebody's life. So we gave him all kind of little odds and ends jobs, and he had no idea that this was going to be for him. And he started to paint the stairs that go into the trailer. And when I went out to go and look over his work, and I'm giving him a hard time if he's painted it all well and stuff. And I said, "Make sure you paint all this." And he said, "Pastor Andy," I said, "What?" He goes, "This is going to be a nice home, nice home." I said, "Man, it's going to be a really nice home." And he said, "I'll tell you, whoever gets this home, they better come and thank me for painting those stairs." So I was dying. I said, "I think we're going to figure it out. So we can make that happen." So every other day or so I would poke him. I'd be like, "Man, those stairs are nice." He's like, "Man, whoever gets this, they better be thankful." I said, "Okay." So a couple days later, I met with him and I said, "Hey, would you help me on a Sunday morning give this thing away?" Yeah, yeah, yeah. He was all in. And he's like, "Who are we going to give it to?" I said, "Oh, it's going to be a surprise. It's going to be amazing." So he said, "Yeah, yeah, I'm in." Well, at this time, I'm trying to practice what we might say on stage. But with him, he just wants to know where we're going to eat. Are we going to have fun? And like, what are we going to do? So he's perfect for me. And I couldn't get a line of questions and the answers that we might be able to do on Sunday. So we walked into Sunday morning and just went with it. And Tori, I'm going to tell you this, we were able to do this whole video and show off what we designed and built. And it was the first time he got to see the inside of it. And there was a picture of me and him that we took a while ago, and we put it in a frame, and he's had it in his hotel rooms, he had it in his tent, he had it in his hotel rooms. And we borrowed it from him a couple of days before that to make a copy of it. So we lied to him, but God was okay with that, I think. And so we got this picture, and we put it in the trailer. So when you open the door, you see it right away. And so when we started to show off the video, he's on stage with me and he's watching it. And after a few seconds, he screams and he says, "My picture." And he looks into me and he says, "I told you I want my picture." Like, he's all upset at me because he wants his picture back while they're showing this video off. And once he started to watch this, he said, "Oh, that looks nice in there." And I said to him, "Why is your picture in there?" He said, "I don't know." And then it hit. Oof, that's probably the craziest service I've ever been part of. Craziest service that changed my life forever. And we made these welcome home signs that we told him he can go outside and see his home for the first time. And I told my church, I said, "Hey, hang out and take pictures with him." I mean, we had hundreds of people and waiting in line just to take pictures with this beautiful man. That same day, I told him I would give him a job, so he runs around with me and he does all kind of little things because he needs a job, right? And it's Tori, it's changed our church. But I have to give you guys some credit. I need to talk to Pastor Dino and even Pastor Chris Hodges and then your whole Servolution team. What you guys are doing to inspire us, it's just a little thing, but can you just start with a little thing? And as you start with a little thing, it gets a little bit bigger. And when you impact a person's life, the biggest blessing that you get out of that is you're getting the blessing. And what you guys are doing is so not important. That would be an understatement. It is vital. And I believe what you're doing is you're teaching us how to tap the heart of God. And that is why there's explosion going on for the churches that are actually serving. You're teaching them how to tap the heart of God, which is people, humans. And when you tap the heart of God and you love people well, you'll never be alone a day in your life. And I have to give credit back to you guys for inspiring us and teaching us how to do that. And we're trying to learn how to do it better and better each week.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I need to stay on mute because I'm like about to just sob. Wow. Thank you for that. The credit is Jesus. Like, tapping the heart of God is everything. And people, like, he says that when you serve the least of these, you serve me. And his image is inside of people. So if we want to love him and serve him, it's in people. It's in Daniel's. It's in Jennifer's. It's in all of them. And I'm so thankful that, like, that's what you guys see. That's why we do what we do. And Daniel is everything to me. Like, that is the absolute perfect picture, perfect story. And to be honest with you, as much as, like, I'm his best friend and he doesn't know it. Like, I'm from afar, I'm virtual, I'm a big fan. He is an angel. I love him. As much as I adore and cherish him, truth be told, what I see coming out of your church, based on how, like, I can even tell, like, nothing was even said, but I can tell that he has changed you guys, like how you guys are rallied and in love with this person and so excited. He is truly family, and it's not a project. It's not a, oh, look at us. It's genuine, absolute love. And like, there's nothing that can explain it, but I can see it even states away. Like, just this is what the kingdom of heaven is about. This is what it can be about if we just say yes and we're audacious with our asks and our
Yeah.
creativity. And look what God can do when we're just like
Yeah.
following his spirit and saying yes to people. And now, okay, there's more to the story. So Serve Day, fast forward, Serve Day
Yeah.
21,
Yeah.
Daniel, what
He's
in the
leading
world?
he's leading our summer serve day for our homeless outreach. He sat down with us and told us the things that he would need and when he lived on the street. And so there's little things that we got right, but there's things that we got wrong. He's like, man, I need this, and I need to be able to have this, and this. So he taught us how to put hygiene kits together and different things together. Then he led the meeting down there with Casey and our team, led the meeting down there, and he was able to say like, hey, one day I was homeless, but I'm not homeless anymore. And I found a family, a church family, and now I was with him yesterday. Most of the day, and we were running around doing errands and working and stuff, and he's just telling me all about his serve day, and that the pride that he had to see his friends that he lived with on the street, to be able to shake their hand and help them. He said, I'm now able to do that because you did that for me. So like the explosion of hope that is starting because of this, and really, I'm an outsider, although I love my ARC churches and my ARC brothers and sisters and Church of the Highlands. I'm an outsider because we didn't plant with ARC, because I didn't know anything about ARC. But I then started to follow the things that you guys were doing and said, well, that's a good best practice. And when I started to see a year ago or 2 years ago about the serve day in July, I said, well, we got to do it. And so think about this, Tori. 2 years ago, we were one years old, and we said, well, let's do an absolute serve day in July with them on that day. Let's sign up for the app, the whole 9 yards. But then that sparred, let's do this in like 2 months. Let's make this an every other month thing. And then or a quarter. Then it was every other month. And then it became, once COVID hit, it became monthly. And now now we're probably a church built off of serving, probably is what we are.
Probably. Just probably, I don't know about that. That's so insane. Oh my gosh, this is brilliant. I'm so excited. Okay, I have a couple more questions. One,
Let's do
though,
it.
this is one more deep question. I can't help but ask, but it's so everybody who listens to this knows my heart is individual people. Like big picture
Yeah.
is fantastic, but unless it's informed by one person at a time, then it's meaningless. It gets so
Yeah.
watered down. So
Bingo.
we have to be so focused on that. But as a lead pastor, obviously the prayer is your church is going to continue to grow and influence people.
Yeah.
Who would you, I don't know how to word my question, but like speaking to someone who maybe is like, I can't do for everyone what I did for Daniel. Like you expected that guy to tell you, but so I'm going to hold back because I can't go that
Mm.
extravagant for everybody. But
Yeah.
like the way that has changed things and opened up new doors because you did focus so deeply on one person,
Yep.
literally one person, the entire church.
Yep.
And you can't do that every day. It's not going to be every single
Yep.
story. But like, what would you say to someone who's trying to figure out how do we love that extravagantly for one person and not be afraid of, oh, what's going to happen if we say yes to this and we have to say yes to all these other things? Just give some wisdom to that.
So my team doesn't know this yet. After I'm done with you, I'm having a meeting with them to tell them what I'm going to do on Sunday. So they don't know what we're doing yet this Sunday. So I'm going to tell you first. So
Yay.
God gave me this vision of that as believers, we are the future. We are the future. We are setting the pace for the future. We have hope that you cannot buy. We have grace that also brings in mercy. We are the greatest superpower the world has ever seen. We are the future. Now, when you start to look at big picture and we're going to end foster care, I don't know where to start. But I do have a friend that sits next to me at work. And so if I can help them sow the seeds this summer and teach them how to love that person right next to them, and maybe invite them or do something with them, or take them to lunch and just love on them, teach them how to love a little bit differently. A love that is so extravagant that might be the first thing that they ask when they see them walking around the block. How was your night? How's your day? How's work going? Learn their names, learn their kids' names. Be intentional about people, one person. If we can affect 1 to 2, and my push this week is going to be 2 people this month. Each person affect 2 people this month. And that can be somebody in their house, it could be a neighbor, it could be a coworker. But the goal is, yes, do we want to reach masses? Yes, but there's a saying that I think it's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go far, you go with somebody. You go together. And so, Pastor Erwin McManus from Mosaic Church, which if anybody's listening to this, if I could get anything out of my life would be to see him, meet him one day. But he wrote something that said, some people believe that that life is sometimes a sprint, but it's not a sprint, it's more of a marathon. But he said he sees life more as a relay. And what he's saying is, I'm working together with people. I'm working together with people. I can't affect the whole community, but I can start in my household, and I can start in my block, my city block, and I can start in my workforce. When I start to get the spirit of loving, that is the spirit of serving. And so what I would say to people right now that are listening to this is, I would have them write down their top 3 needs that they have personally. It could be finances, it could be just loneliness, whatever it is. And I would tell them to ask God to allow them to be that need to somebody else. And if they'll learn how to be the conduit to the need that they have, they will find quickly that God will supply every last one of those needs. Stop looking at me, start looking at the others, and we have a saying, it's we over me always. We do the we with the alligator symbol over the we over me. In fact, I'm wearing a shirt that says we over me always. So the idea is, if you can be other people centered, like Paul was teaching the Philippian church, other people centered, you will stop forgetting about your needs and God will fulfill them. And that's what I would say is be as open to loving somebody right next door to you, or right in the same office that you work out of. It'll make a difference.
Oh my gosh, this is so deep, Pastor Andy. So deep. Yes, I love it. I can't even explain or put into words. Like, this has rocked my world, this conversation. I'm so excited. It's so exhilarating. Like, I have been the person to hold back sometimes, like, oh, I don't know if I can do that.
Yep.
But the second, like, you say yes, it changes. It changes everything. It's like a doorway leads to another doorway. And you were on this wild adventure, exploring every dimension of God's extravagant love that you can it's like the most fun, colorful way to live. It's the best. And I love that your strategy is, your entire strategy to reach your world, mobilize your church, is about personal, it's about the one.
Yeah.
That is your strategy to reach the world, is the one.
Every day, one, and then that one will reach one, and I'll reach another one, and then we'll reach 2, and we'll reach 5. But you got to start with 1. It's too overwhelming to say we're going to end X, or we're going to do X. We're just going to reach 1. And if we can inspire each other to even love our household, let's just start there. Man, we can move this thing forward, and we've got the greatest message in the world. Got the greatest message in the world. We're not peddling something that's going to hurt them, man. We're giving hope and life and the greatest grace. And so we should be really fired up about that.
Yes, we should. Yes, we should. This is so cool. I'm excited. I'm about to go like find somebody on the neighborhood street. Like, I really love you because I just love people.
Love it.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so one more question. Well, 2. It's like 2 wrap-ups. What would you recommend? You've said Erwin McManus, big fan. Not many, that would not be most people's first answer. So I'm really like, we are vibing. I totally am on the same wavelength with you. Yeah, just a book or a podcast or just something people, if they're like, let's get into Pastor Andy's mind a little more. What's inspiring you?
So, So first, again, Pastor Erwin McManus. I mean, if anybody out there that knows this man, he has no idea how much he's inspired me and our church. and I would do anything for 5 minutes at the feet of that anointed human, and his son, Aaron,
Yeah.
his wife, Kim, and his daughter and stuff. So yeah, amazing. But they have a podcast called Battle Ready Podcast. I would absolutely tell people to subscribe to the Battle Ready Podcast, because they're both amazing, Aaron and I hate that I'm telling you guys this because I want to keep that little treasure for myself, but it's just too good. So they have a great podcast, and they cover everything from culture, art, basketball to church stuff, etc. And it's great. I'll tell you a quote that Pastor Chris Hodges said once that stuck with me. He said, "You can't build culture; you can only be it or do it." So I don't know about many people in this that's listening to this that they've ever been to a church or a place that saw like the mission statement on the walls, like framed and everything, and then you look around and you're like, well, we're not doing any of that. It's one thing to say who you are, but unless you're going to do it, it will never be culture. So for me as a leader, I knew if I wanted a massive outpouring of hope, and I wanted to have electric Sundays that people are coming in anticipation for God to move, then I had to actually live that way. And that meant that I had to clean the floor every Sunday when we were doing setup and tear down. I take the trash out. I work with my team. I'm around on these serve days. I'm involved. I stand in a line at the end of the service that goes for about an hour and a half at times, maybe an hour and 40 minutes. I speak to every person that stands in that line that wants to talk to me. And it's one-on-one. And anytime there's a kid that's in that line with parents, I never address the parents first. I get on my knee and I talk to the kid first. And I just love on the kids. And then we go to the parents. And at the end of the day, I think Pastor Chris Hodges was absolutely right. All of us keep saying we want this type of culture. We want a serve culture. We want a give culture. We want whatever the culture is. But you can't have it unless you do it. You just got to get out of your comfort zone and start to do it one day at a time. And I think that's probably been an inspiration to us of this is who we want to be known for. So let's put our actions where our mouth is and see it come to fruition.
Amazing. And you're doing it. I can tell it from right here. Like it's so evident. It's incredible and so inspiring to me. Just do it. Like I think I get in my head a lot. A lot of people probably do like, okay, what's the proper policy? What's the proper procedure? What am I doing
Yes, yes.
right? And it's like, yeah, you gotta follow some of that, but just take up your space. Like be proud that you not proud, but just like take up your
Yeah.
space, man. Go after people, build bridges, build pathways, and see what God does. It's so much more fun. And to have a lead pastor who believes in that and is truly interacting and like at the forefront, loving people right there, like that is gold. That is everything. So I honor you for that. Thank you. I know that, yeah, that's not everywhere, and it's natural and it's anointing. So thank you for setting that example and inspiring so many of us. Okay, last question, I promise. How can we find you guys on social media or, all the things?
Yeah. So our church is called Factory Church, and you can find our website at thefactorychurch.com, or we also go by a tribe called factory.com. So you can get it either way. And Factory Church CLT on Instagram and Facebook is how to best find us. And we're very active socially. And so if we're doing something, you're going to know about it on social media. And really, I want to say this too. For the leaders out there to remember this, that we can find success in the things that we're doing alone, and we can work really hard and find that. But it's when you can create teams around you and empower people and allow them to actually find their fullness, and you are part of helping them, you will then truly be successful when you can walk out of the place where you are serving at that point in time and watch it do better than you did, and then go to the next place. Go to the next place in church, go to the next place in your serve team or whatever the case is. So if we can put aside how we feel an accomplishment that we have to take credit for everything. And I'll tell you this, my teams here, man, it's breathtaking to watch them. And I don't put them through 40-day tracks of finding out if they're capable of leading or serving. You can help us serve and reach somebody right now, get on board. Let's do this. they're going to go through life change along the way. And if you're truly committed to helping people have life change, sometimes it means putting down our own feelings and desires and letting somebody else shine a little bit. It's important to do so.
It's beautiful. Wow. That is so good. I can't wait to listen to this again because it's just so amazing, so encouraging. And I think it's the perfect, like, coming out of Serve Day 21. We just had this big blast of kindness. It was so much fun. But continuing that culture and that momentum and like what's next, we have to make sure that it wasn't just an event, but it was like a spark. It's a chance to like get some ideas and get in motion. And so you have given us just so much to think about and so much like, all right, I took a deep breath after Serve Day. Now let's go. Let's get after more
Yeah.
people and have a blast doing it. So I really appreciate your time. We honor y'all, honor the team, and can't wait to come visit. We're gonna be following you guys.
Yes.
So y'all are doing Love Week and all, I don't even know. You're doing all kinds of stuff. So awesome.
Yes.
Cool. Well, thank you, viewers and listeners. We love you guys. Servolution family, y'all are fantastic. And we'll see you next time on the Serve Brew. Bye.
Have a good day.